That's going to be fun to edit at the start of the video. But we're back. Didn't have an episode last week. I was away in Thailand on a trip for Nogi Summit. First time I've ever been invited on a camp, which is really cool. And now all the invites are suddenly streaming in after I already have shit on this year. If you guys haven't seen it on Instagram, I'm going to be a dad in September. So obviously going to be busy. A lot busier than I already am, with much more important tasks than I already am, raising a young child. I fucking cannot wait. It's going to be really fun. Nick's daughter was just in here running around, being a menace, and asking her all about the park this morning that they were at. And I don't know, it's this weird thing. I've always been really good with kids. They've always, I assume, I've never asked them with an articulated answer from their behalf because they're children, obviously. But I've always appeared as though I'm a white version of Shrek, so I think they have some sort of familiarity with me. They don't know what to make of me when they first see me because they're like, this dude's fucking massive, kind of scary, weird, get away from me. But then it just becomes a matter of how many questions can you ask them until they get an idea that you're not a threat and all those sorts of things. And kids have that innate ability to be able, just like dogs have that innate ability to be able to understand like an energetic transfer where they're very privy to understanding whether you have bad intentions or not quite quickly. Although some kids, when you see videos on the internet, they're like, if a stranger offers you candy, what will you do? There's all these American kids that obviously love their lollies and all those sorts of things. And they go, yeah, I'll take some. And it's just, you're like, dude, that's not the correct answer. But yeah, even with my cousins and people's kids that I've met, and I got a couple of mates that have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and they've always been pretty happy to be around me. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity of raising another individual, and seeing what they turn out like. To be completely honest, people that keep asking me, they're like, "Oh, do you know what it is yet?" No, I don't know what it is yet. Do you have a preference? And not really, because my preference doesn't really change what it is already. Like, it already is what it is, whether it's a boy or a girl. And that doesn't really change too much in my head, to be completely honest. If I were to have some sort of preference, I think I would just be shutting out amazing opportunities. And I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, and the fact that a lot of people are terrified of the unknown, and they want to make certain everything in their lives. And I think this is a fundamental error of the human condition in today's day and age. It's pegged pretty heavily towards a survival instinct, and that part of psychology I definitely do understand in terms of the reptilian brain and the flight or fight system, and the fact that it's a very narrow mentality. And I'm only going to do things of which I know the outcome is going to be certain, which is therefore nothing. And so you have no growth and no development whatsoever. And it's this false guise and this false summation that if I stay within the lane, then I will be safe. And if I'm safe, I will be secure, and so on and so forth. And I understand why people think like this. I was like that for many, 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 many years, up until about the age of 23, possibly even 22, around that time. Probably about 5, 6 years ago now. And when you start to break away from that, you recognize one fundamental truth, that is, the unknown, as scary and as terrifying as it may be, holds all of the possibilities behind it, all of the things you don't know about. And that means good and bad. That means positive and negative. It means beneficial and detrimental. And the false presupposition that most people go into when they think about the unknown happens to be that it's going to be disastrous, and it's going to be a negative consequence, because, oh, well, if I don't know what's going to happen, it's probably going to turn out for the bad, which is you just trying to certify what will happen anyway, so you fall into the same logical loop. And it's a bit of cognitive dissonance, to be fair. Cognitive bias, sorry, not cognitive dissonance. It's just a bit of a cognitive bias where you're trying to extrapolate the past things that have happened to you And the most powerful emotions tend to be the negative emotions. And then so when you future cast those things in it forwards, you end up having this idea that if you go off the trodden path, if you stray away from the crowd, if you remove yourself from the average, well, then you're going to be going down a negative territory. And of course, when you think about endeavoring into new lands, there are going to be some negatives that you didn't know about. But that doesn't mean that the positives won't outweigh that. Or, a better way to think about it, the way that I think about it, that the negatives attached to the positives you're going for are much better than the positives that you have already. So, say for instance that you're like me, and not everybody's like this, but you're like me, and you do not like being employed by people because you have a storied past of disdain for unearned authority. And you also have this idea inside your head that the more you put in, the more you should get out, because it's a value equation. And the more that you bring will be the more that you deliver yourself, or the more that you receive. And in a job, that's very difficult in some capacity to attain, because you're only going to be reaching the limits of the confines of the role that you're in. And then, yeah, maybe you get promoted, but then it's only X amount difference, like a 5% difference. And Jeff Bezos talks about this. He says, business is kind of like baseball. You get unlimited pitches, and except when you hit a home run, it's not worth 1 point. It's not worth 3 points or 4 points or however many points it is for home runs. Shows my baseball knowledge. You could hit one ball once and have 1,000 points happen. And it's your ability to just step up to the plate and keep taking swings. No matter the consequences, no matter what the crowd is shouting, no matter what the people in the arena are giving you shit for and all that sort of thing. And that to me speaks volumes to why I do what I do and why I don't do the opposite of that. And yeah, it's sometimes it's terrifying, because when you quit your job and you're not earning much money and you think about the unknown, and you start to project forwards of, well, what if it doesn't work out? And then you think about all the scenarios of which that could play out. But then you recognize that it's also two sides of the same coin, and that if you just turn your perspective and flip it over, what if it worked out better than I could have even imagined? It's a fair question, because it's still unknown until you start to walk the path. And Wayne Dwyer has a fucking awesome video on the internet, and he talks about this poem. And he says, how do you know that you're on the path that you're meant to be on? It's because it disappears in front of you. And that's the scary part for most people. I was talking to a Dutch guy on the beach in Thailand, and he said to me, we were the same age. I said, when were you born? In 1997. He was a couple months older than me. He's in January. And I said to him, I was like, what's your ideal life? What's your dream? And he goes, well, I've got myself into a position where I'm in a very, very good job. And if I stick it out for the next 10 to 15 years, then there's a progression scheme ahead of me. If I go to work and do well, in the next 3 years, I'll go to this position. In the next 5 years, I'll go to this position. In the next 7 years, I'll go to this position. And by the time that I've been 10 years or a decade in, I'll be at this position earning this much money. And I caught him a little bit. We were watching the sunset on a beach in Thailand. It was pretty cool. And I caught him a little bit and asked him, I said, you don't sound super pleased with that. As if you had sort of some reparations towards it. And kind of unloaded a little bit. It wasn't like this super D&M conversation. It was just a casual chat sitting next to a guy on a beach. And he said, yeah, it's not my dream. My dream is to do my own thing, and knowing that I'm extremely capable of doing that. And he sounded like a very intelligent guy, and admittedly so. He was like, yeah, I'm quite smart, especially when I compare myself to my friends and all those sorts of things. He goes, I think I have a burden of responsibility for my intellect, but that I'm not using it to its highest potential, because he knows in the field of opportunity that he was in specifically, starting a company that he was working within is extremely, extremely difficult. And there's certain fields that you get into let's say the mining industry in Australia. You're not going to start a mining company that competes with the top dogs in Australia currently because they have a monopoly on everything that exists. It's much easier to start an information-based business where you could capture certain segments of the market in a Venn diagram. Uh, Obviously, my thing has been like prior athletics and jiu-jitsu, and then also mindset, everything else. And in the middle is the HPU thing, because this has never been done before, quite like I am doing it currently. And so it's a unique selling proposition, and no one has the market capture on that because it's unique to me, which is great, which means it stands out and it works very well. With more traditional businesses and more traditional career paths, that has already been facilitated many years in advance, many decades in advance. And so it's very difficult to crack that code. But I said to him, I was like, well, what would you do if money were no object? I was giving him the whole Alan Watts speech. And he told me, and he just said, I feel like I'd be wasting such an opportunity, the one that I'm in now. And I was like, fuck, man, that's a tough spot. Because this is a guy that is otherwise successful, right? Well-paying job, late 20s, hasn't even turned 30 yet, is living what is defined as other people's dreams and still not happy with it. And this is the thing, this is the thing that fascinated me the most about Thailand. I've been there several times. I've never been to Koh Tao. Koh Tao is a small island off the coast of Koh Samui, and you literally have to like peel into the map on Google Maps to try and find it. And if you're not looking in the wrong spot, you'll never find it. But if you type it in, obviously you'll zoom in and you'll see it. And then you zoom out, you see how desolate and isolated it is. And that means there's a very particular type of person that lives there. And they live there for whatever reason, but the locals there have a specific demeanor to them. And they are excellent people. They're lovely. Absolutely lovely. The service is fantastic. The morale is incredible. They feel like they're genuinely free as individuals. And I don't live there, so I don't know the particular politics of the situation. I don't know what the bureaucracy is like. I became aware of the fact that that island is controlled by a Thai mafia. I met one of them, which was a crazy story I'll tell later. And so there are obvious pitfalls that I'm unaware of as a tourist there. Very similar to the fact that when you go to Japan, it seems like a lovely place. But if you actually had to live there, there are some known pitfalls that would probably make it very difficult as a foreigner. I guess that's very similar to most other countries aside from your own. Probably excluding the US. The US seems pretty happy to have you there. As long as you fit a certain demographic and you're willing to work hard and show up, which should be every country. What a fucking surprise. Anybody that's emigrating to another country that just wants to scab the welfare system should not be welcome. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. I think you want to come here, you want to work hard, like the Italians in the 80s in Sydney. By all means, please, truckloads of individuals, please. Because if you want to make the place that you're going to better to be a part of, by all means, you should be welcomed. If you want to go to a place and decide that is just, you're going to cleave off a small part of it, and then you're just going to exist the way that you existed back in your country with completely different customs, completely different norms, societally, socially, psychologically, physically as well, and that you're going to be an active disruptor to the community that exists there already, no wonder you're going to meet resistance when you come over. Why wouldn't you? Think about it in a jobs perspective. If some guy moves from another job and he was doing a completely different role, and now he wants to do it the way that he was doing his role at his prior company that has nothing to do with your role currently, and just actively makes everything way more difficult than it was before. And the addition of this person is actually a subtraction of the productivity, of the processes and all of the things, and it slows business down significantly because you're now having to deal with a headache of this individual making it so much harder to do what you were going to do regardless of if he was there or not. Versus somebody who comes in, wants to learn, has an open mind and goes, all right, show me how you do things. let me follow your lead. And then if I can be of assistance and make this even better, I'll do my best to be able to bring the knowledge and the experience that I have, even though it's semi-unrelated topic to topic. But if I do have valuable experience in terms of the way I think, in terms of processes, in terms of operations or anything like that, there might be some SOPs at the previous company that would be really, really helpful for the current one. Then I will share those things. But until I find them, I don't really know that I've got anything of value. So then I'll wait. I'll try and fit into the best of my ability, and then we'll go for it. That relationship is 10 times better than the original and than the prior one. If we're talking former to latter, I'm taking the latter every single time. And that's something I try and be intimately aware of when I am visiting other countries. I try to be very respectful for the customs of the country that I'm going to. I don't try and be like the typical drunk American tourist that everybody's America, yeah, USA, USA. And it was funny because I was with a bunch of Americans. They were lovely people. And sometimes they were being misinterpreted by other locals and the Europeans that were there. And I just said, sorry, he's American. He doesn't speak English. And they all found that very, very funny. And but there's certain things that you don't know about until you research it or until you experience it. And of course, you're going to make mistakes. Absolutely. I was in Tokyo with my missus, and I ordered an Uber. This was in May of last year. I ordered an Uber, and then the way that we ordered it, we were going to get the train, but the train didn't go to the specific location that we wanted to go to. It was going to be this big roundabout thing. It was going to take a long time. And we were off to see Tokyo Tower and the red Eiffel Tower that they have in Tokyo as well. It's pretty cool. And it was just going to take forever on the public transport system. So we're like, all right, we'll just get an Uber. It's pretty cheap. It's not too bad. So I order it, and I order it to the left-hand side of the train station, not knowing that that was taxi only and Ubers weren't allowed to go into there. And so we were trying to look around for where this guy was, couldn't quite find him. And then I walked across the other side of the street, but we had to go downstairs underneath the road and then up over the other side. And Japan's very well organized. So they take these things into consideration. They don't allow like public crossings very often in very busy metropolitan areas because it creates complexity. They're very efficient, very structured. So it's cool. It's very cool over there. Anyway, so you go down all the way over the other side, and the guy had done the same thing that we did and like, reversed over the other side because he was waiting on the right-hand side of the road. We were on the left. We'd come under. He'd gone around to try and match where we were because he was looking at the map. And I sent him a message. I said, just stay there. So sorry about the delay. And this whole ordeal probably took about 17, 20 minutes. In Australia, if you take more than 5 minutes to get to your ride, they just leave. They just see you later. In Japan, as far as I understand it, from researching and being there and speaking to people that were there, they have the utmost hierarchical importance of being of service and being of excellent service, that it's expected of them that they will do the best job to their ability, to the ability that they have currently. They're not going to half-ass things. They're not going to be lazy. They're not going to slack off. They will do what is deemed as the best by them and for you as well. And it's really commendable in terms of the culture that they have there. It's cool. I really enjoy it. And we end up getting in the car. We find the guy finally, and doesn't speak the most English. Neither do I. Doesn't speak much English, and we're just saying, "Oh, thank you so much for waiting." Blah blah blah. And I wanted to tip the guy, but before I did, I just had this intuitive sense that I should look it up, if that's customary in this country. And so I looked up, is tipping appreciated in Tokyo, in Japan? And I looked it up, and it actually said that it isn't, because they actually deem that as embarrassing, because they should be doing a good enough job regardless of whether they get compensated for it, and that the compensation, they don't really know what to do with it because they're just doing their job to the highest degree possible, and that's the cultural norm in the society that they're at. And it's actually somewhat offensive if you want to give them more for what they are doing. And I was like, oh, wow, isn't that interesting? Whereas in some Western countries, It's like, no, I demand a tip for doing the least possible, and that you're an asshole if you don't tip me the maximum for me just doing the bare minimum. And there's this weird asymmetry there. That happens in the US. I've been I've been treated phenomenally well in the US in terms of service. I don't think I've ever had bad service in the US. I usually go to pretty decent places over there, so I don't have a bad experience to draw from. But you've obviously heard of those stories and you see it on the internet and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I found that fascinating that a tip would somehow be offensive to the person receiving it, even though in our culture it's a reward. So you got to be careful with these things when you go and travel. You got to make sure that you mind your P's and Q's. And so anyway, when we're in Thailand, there's a different culture there. You're allowed to tip them, and they obviously take that. They have the same ideology, but they definitely don't get offended when you tip them. They're very, very appreciative of the fact. And I was going to this cafe every morning. I never got the guy's name, and it's really annoying me. I know the guy that owns it. I know the second owner, and I know the fact that they own two places together. Benji and Bill. Not Bill, pronounced like an Asian, but Bew, Bill. And both of them were lovely individuals. Benji actually used to live in Noosa, in New South Wales, and decided that it was full of pretentious rich cunts, and it is. And so he decided to get the fuck out of there and go do scuba diving. And Koh Tao is the scuba diving capital of the world in terms of training and all that sort of thing. And when you're riding around on your little moped, you do see scuba diving and snorkeling everywhere. Every second shop is a weed shop, and then every third shop essentially is a scuba diving shop. And or everyone rents motorbikes because that's the only way you get around on the island. And every morning that I'd go in there, he was super happy to see me, super excited. And there was a situation where I went in there and I get a latte or a cappuccino with honey most of the time. And I went in there and he was like, "Oh, so sorry, so sorry." I'm like, what? What's going on? And he goes, "No honey, no honey." And there was a Canadian guy in the back of the shops, tiny little shop. It's probably about the square footage of the studio here. And the cafe part was out the front. And they had like a tiny little table and chair set out the front. And then out the back, it was just like an assorted table and chair as well. And probably about 8 seats in the entire place. It was pretty small. And he goes, "No honey and no honey." And I was like, "Dude, don't stress. I can have it without honey. That's okay." And the Canadian guy in the back was saying the same thing. He actually has a latte with honey as well. And while he was making it, everything is on island time there. If you don't know what island time is everything takes as long as it's going to take, and there's no rush. They do a good job, but they'll do it in the amount of time that it takes, rather than trying to rush through something like you will get in Sydney most of the time. In Sydney, the quality is very good, but it's bang, 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 bang. It's done in a very, very accelerated fashion. And when you go to somewhere like Koh Tao in Thailand, you recognize how highly strung everyone is in Sydney, and the way that they necessitate their stress is the fact that everything has to be done at speed. And you do notice a tangible difference. Even going from Sydney to Brisbane or Sydney to Melbourne, Melbourne's kind of catching up in that regard. But you go Sydney to Brisbane, and Brisbane's just relaxed. Like even Coolangatta, when I went up to the Gold Coast, is kind of on the border of New South Wales and Queensland. Everything's just so much slower up there. And the people move in a different way. And there's not as many people in suits, and they're not charging around places. And everyone doesn't seem to be fueled by caffeine and nicotine all the time, where they've just got to get everything done. It's more retired, relaxed pace, and that's definitely what Thailand's like. So anyway, as he was making my coffee, I knew I had ample time to be able to duck off quickly. I said to him, I'll come back. So I went to the 7-Eleven across the road, got like a big bottle of honey, and then brought it back. And he was beside himself happy with me going out of my way to go grab something for him. Really, it was for me because I wanted the fucking honey in my coffee. But I just said to him, I was like, "No, of course. No problem. You can have it. And just make sure the Canadian guy doesn't get any," as a joke, obviously. And he's like looking around the corner. He's like, "Dude, what the fuck?" He wasn't upset about it, but he got that it was a joke. And then I went in there and had a chat to him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I've been coming here every morning. It's really good." I was like, "Dude, I'm from Sydney. We're known as having some of the best coffee in the world, and this guy does a fucking phenomenal job." Like it's always one of those things when you're going to another country where you're accustomed to certain types of coffee, and the Americans listening to this won't really understand because you guys think that Starbucks is acceptable, and it is absolute dog piss in a cup that's been warmed up. It's fucking disgusting. Probably akin to 7-Eleven coffee in Australia, which should tell you everything you need to know. If it's coming from an automatic machine from a petrol station, it's shit. Don't drink it. If it's coming from somebody with blue hair, it's pretty good. Drink it. The La Mazzocca machine, I think it's called Mazzocca. Any cafe that has one of those machines gives a fuck about their coffee. And there was a place in Thailand, in Koh Tao, called Mingle Bagel, which was owned partly by Benji, the guy that was the owner of the place that I went to every morning. They had a La Mazzocca machine. Unreal. Really, really good. And it was red. It was kind of like one of the home setups. And that's how you can tell they're not as busy or not as speed oriented as we are in Sydney. Because if you see the machines in Sydney, they're the big three. I completely forget what they're called, but the three pouring sections for the espresso. Some places, even like the one I go to at L's at Winston Hills, they've got 3 on one machine and 3 on another machine for takeaway. I can order a takeaway at that cafe and it will be in my hand in 3 minutes. That's pretty spectacular. Most cafes in the city, pretty similar to that because they're just so used to pumping out as many as they can. They just churn all day, every day. And anyway, so I brought the honey back and he was extremely happy. And he like gave me free coffee for it and blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't expecting any of that at all. And from that moment, every time I walked in, he just had an even bigger smile on his face. And I was rocking up at the same time every morning, trying to adjust to the jet lag. Even though it's only a 3-hour time difference, it still does rock you around a little bit. The first morning I woke up really early, comparative to Thai time. It still would have been about 10 a.m. Sydney time, but I was up at like 7:30 Thai time, and they didn't open till 8, even though the sign says 7 till 2. No one pays attention to their own timed signs there because he was open well past 2. I was rolling in there some days at 3:45 and he was still open. I'm just walking in there. He's like, "Yeah, coffee, no worries." But it was a cool experience. And you start to realize that, I don't know, we take things way too seriously in some capacity, especially in the West, depending obviously on what you're talking about. But the speed of which things happen, yeah, I'm accustomed to it. I enjoy it, but it's kind of unnecessary, really. And it does give you this, without even really tangibly focusing on it, it does give you like this little baseline of anxiety because everything needs to be done so quickly and there's timelines and deadlines and all this shit. And in some aspects, I really respect it because obviously we can progress a lot faster. But if you've listened to previous episodes on the state of the world, we haven't really progressed much, if at all, in the last 100 years. And people will listen to that and they'll say that's crazy because, well, you run a business from an iPhone and all this sort of shit. And yeah, don't get me wrong. That's cool. Not saying it's not. Not saying it's not progress. But I think we're underneath this illusion of technological gain that has made life worse. It hasn't progressed life. Like going out. I don't go out ever. And that should come as no surprise to anybody. I don't really enjoy it. I used to when I was a kid. I say kid. I was 18, 19, 20, 21. I used to enjoy it when I was back then. But I think the reason I used to enjoy it is because the world was a different place back then 10 years ago. You could go out and iPhones had only just sort of come into popularity. Just. And Instagram didn't exist. Snapchat didn't exist. Facebook was a place where you would write funny statuses to your mates. And it still had pages. There was no feed. You had to click the page to go to the next page. You barely ever did it. It was like Google pages. No one goes to the second page of Google. It's redundant at that point. If you haven't typed in enough information to get what you want on the first page of Google, it's your fault, not Google's fault. But you weren't ever entrapped into thinking that if I do something stupid here tonight, it's gonna be posted on the internet for a video for everybody to see, and that will be putting my job at risk and my reputation at risk and blah blah blah. And from someone who doesn't go out in Sydney, that's my estimation. I have been out, but not regularly. And people are glued to their phones the whole time. And if you do see someone doing some dumb shit, or if there's a fight that breaks out, phones whip out. And there's a certain risk involved with that, especially if you work at a company that is privy to that sort of thing and it comes across HR's table, they recognize you and then they go, hey, we're going to have to let you go because you act like an idiot on the weekends because you represent us. Obviously, people have no idea that you work at XYZ and that you were involved in that, but they will take it that way. They will take it seriously. In Thailand, it's very different. You definitely recognize the fact that being glued to your phone is an environmental thing. I'll say that. It was very odd. I mean, the Thais on the island have probably been westernized to a certain degree with the fact that if they're not working and they're just waiting for someone to show up at like a juice stand or something like that, most of them were doom scrolling. But when they were enjoying themselves, they were enjoying themselves. They weren't doing it to post it to the internet. Their usage was basically just to spend time in between customers, whereas they would have just been looking at the road or something maybe 10 years ago. But there definitely was a discernible difference in terms of when we did go out into these like bars and other different places where people were sitting having chats to each other. They were learning about each other's cultures. They were having discourse on certain things. And like I was talking to the Dutch guy. I'd met a bunch of people. Obviously, I'm a weird looking dude and people run into me and they're like, oh, wow, what's your gym routine? And how tall are you? And how much do you weigh? And all these fucking retarded questions I don't know why people care about. Mostly it was the ears thing. And they're like, oh, what do you do? Yeah. But that's not different from Australia, by the way. But it was what came off of the back of that, where there was a lot more free-flowing conversation that I've been privy to in the last couple of years, especially when you go out in Sydney. People are very adverse to too much social fluidity, if that makes sense. They kind of sit within their groups and they kind of sit within their cliques, and they don't really mingle with people, and they don't really assimilate even within the environment of the club. And this is just based on my experience. Your experience listening might be completely different. I noticed that America is different. I remember when I was waiting for my missus to get off her flight into Vegas before ADCC in 2022. I was at a bar in one of the places downstairs of which hotel we're at. We're at Mandalay Bay, the big gold one. And I was downstairs. I was having dinner. It was late. It was about to be midnight when she was arriving. And I was talking to this guy, Frankie. And Frankie was a funny motherfucker. We hit it off straight away. And because in the bars in Vegas and in a lot of places in America, if you're sitting by yourself, they won't let you take up two seats at a table. They'll just sit you at the bar. But the bar is massive. The bar is like a meter length, a meter in breadth from you to the bartender, so they can serve you food, and there's places for plates and all these sorts of things. And he sits up next to me and he looks at my ears and he goes, you got a pretty fucked up ear, huh? And then I turned to face him. He goes, oh, it's both. And that was like the lead of his conversation. He was there for a bucks party. And what a great way to start the conversation. I mean, it is a conversation piece. I've started to realize that now since having them for like the last 2 years, 3 years. But yeah, me and him started talking about all this crazy shit. It was really funny. I looked at him at one point in the conversation. I said, you vote Trump? And he's like, hell yeah, brother. And I was like, I knew I liked you. Not that I'm going to get into the whole political, but that tells me a lot about the way that you think in that time period. That gives me the idea that I would agree with a lot of the things you'd agree with. And we're talking about the scandemic and how much bullshit that was. And lo and behold, me and him have the same opinions on all of that too. So I was right in my assessment. But if you're sitting by yourself, at least in my estimation, from when I've been out, not too far, not too in the not too distant past, uh, with mates of mine, probably when I met my missus, probably about 2.5 years ago, that wouldn't happen. And there's a weird sensation in terms of like a standoffish sort of feeling that you get in Sydney. And you don't get that, especially on Thailand. No one's standoffish in Thailand. I think because most people train Muay Thai when they're growing up as kids, or most of them are just pretty happy to wake up every day. And so to actively pursue some sort of tension doesn't make any sense. Whereas in Sydney, it's a little bit different. I don't feel like most people are grateful to wake up every single day, and they've always got something to do, and something else needs their attention, and there's XYZ that's on the agenda and the schedule and blah blah blah. And there's some sort of like social hierarchical jockeying that's going on at every single juncture. And this guy's wearing a shirt that says this brand name, and this guy's wearing a shirt that has this brand name, and it's all just a bit fucking gay, to be fair. It's really changed my perspective on a lot of different things. And I don't really do things for the validation of it. I've definitely gotten better with that, distancing myself from the necessitation of validation, especially regards social media. Like if a video does 100,000 views, it's like, cool. I wasn't really caring about the views anyway. If a video does 6 million views, then I'm like, all right, cool, that one did better than the other one. Try and analyze why and then figure it out, and then hopefully repeat the process, because more eyeballs means more people are aware of the things that I'm talking about, and I think they're pretty fucking important. And if I believe that they're important and that people can gain something from it, then I hope people see it. That's about that's about my strategy at the moment. But it's not like this vanity metric thing where I get super excited about it anymore. And it's a similar thing of like you drive a certain car. Like you should be driving it for you, not because you will get something from the fact that people see you in it. There's a really cool guy on the Iced Coffee Hour. He's like a Lamborghini specialist, or he's like a car resto mod guy. And he talked about that too. And he was saying, he goes, before Lamborghini made the Urus, because a lot of soccer mums drive them, and they very popular cars, and they probably drive a lot of places with them because they're quite practical. He goes, before the Urus came out, I would have been the number one mileage holder in Lamborghinis in the country by far. Because he's got old Murcielagos, he's got old Gallardos, he's got gated manual versions of all these cars. Like, fucking sick. Sick. If you're a car guy and you get a gated manual version of an old school Italian supercar, well played, my friend. Well played. But he was talking about the fact that I've got things on the cars that have things that have needed to be done for 5 years, and they've got cosmetic damage, and they've got paint chips and whatever else. Because I don't care. Because the only reason I would care is if I was buying it for the vanity of other people seeing me in it, and that would give me some sort of ego boost. He goes, no, I'm a car guy. Because I like the way these things sing. I like the way they perform. I love the history of it. I love all the idea that went into constructing these sorts of vehicles, and the fact that Lamborghini just wanted to do the most outrageous performance machine that their engineers could make. And that's why I drive it and why I find them interesting. And the fact that they're mechanically sound and they drive really fast. And he goes, I don't care about preserving miles on them or anything like that. Nothing to do with this is linked into my mind that it might be like a good investment, or like I'm trying to preserve the shareholder value by not running the clock up too much and all that dumb shit. And I really resonate with that, because there's a lot of people that have a lot of money and they buy these nice things, and it's all for the validity of the other person seeing them have it. It's kind of fucking stupid, to be fair, because you could spend your life running a race that you don't want to win. I don't really understand that. Like, don't get me wrong. I like nice shit. I like nice cars. I'm definitely into cars. One of the best guys that was on the trip, his name's Tim. He's from Oklahoma. And a bunch of those guys train in Portland at New Wave in America. And he was like, you know what? I'm just not a car guy. He goes, I use them for utility. That's about it. And I said, but are you an old school car guy? Like, I get not being into new cars. I understand that with all the gadgets and the iPads and the fucking random shit that they got in them now. And he goes, oh yeah, like I'd be into old cars. Like I was talking to him about the fact that I met somebody when I was DJing an 18th birthday party that was the dad of the daughter, and it was in Dural somewhere. And he had the Gone in 60 Seconds Mustang that Nicolas Cage drives in the movie. Man, what a beautiful piece of machinery. No, like, no airbags. I don't even think seatbelts, or like the traditional seatbelts that you would expect on a car. No power steering, no safety, none of that. None of that. Just V8 muscle. And I think the thing probably has like 300 horsepower, which is pitiful by today's standards. Like a Yaris has that today. Probably. I don't know the numbers, but anyway. But there's something about it in terms of like the soul of that car that exists. And you wouldn't buy it just because someone wanted to have someone see you in it. You'd buy it because you really fucking liked it. Because you really enjoyed it, like the history of it, the sound, the way that it drives, the way that it feels, the way that it's kind of inconvenient to be in, and it doesn't have a lot of safety features, so you wouldn't really be putting your family in it and all that sort of jazz. But you just do it for you. And I think that's what a lot of people get mixed up in the chase for success and greatness and validity from other people, and especially vanity with social media. And it's really become apparent since visiting Thailand for a couple of weeks. I think I was there for like 10, 11, 12 days or wherever I was. And no one gives a fuck about what you're wearing, what t-shirt you have on, like brand name this or whatever. And it's really nice. It is. You don't feel pressured to be wearing a certain thing, to fit into a certain ideal, or not that I usually do. But I can understand a lot of people do feel like that. Like they feel like they're not shit because they're not driving a specific type of car. They feel like, I used to be one of these people. In some aspects, you get embarrassed as a result of a car that you drive, which is so stupid. So stupid. And I kind of shortcut this a little bit in a way, because I remember when I was getting the bus everywhere when I'd lost my license. I was getting the bus everywhere, and I would walk past thousands of cars that were parked in any sort of environment. And I would think, fuck, if I could just get in any of these, like no matter how shit it looks, no matter how terrible it is, whether it runs properly or you got to constantly put coolant in it or whatever else, what I would do to just get in one of these and go and drive home, instead of spending an hour on the bus to go 13 kilometers, I could just drive 19 minutes. That would be so much better. And when I finally did get my car, yeah, it wasn't anything flash. It definitely wasn't anything impressive, but it was mine. And I remembered the times. Where I was walking past rows and rows and rows and rows of cars, knowing that I wasn't getting in any of them going to the bus, to waste a fuckload of my life on public transport. And a lot of time that I obviously did to myself, but you kind of get this appreciation for it. And I think that was part of the lesson of going through all of that, is that it's not about the way it looks, and it's not about the way that other people will speak about you as a result of blah, blah, blah. It legitimately is just because you once didn't have it and now you do have it, and that's what it should mean to you. And you should do things in a capacity that it means something to you. Not it means something to you because it means something to other people. And I think that's how you get very confused. I think that's how you get very crossed up in your goals. And even think about it like this as well. I've been thinking about this a lot. If you've got a big enough vision to build something like $100 million company, you're not doing it because of the money. And a lot of people get this messed up. A lot of people who aren't in business get this messed up. They'll say things like, Elon Musk has $300 billion, whatever the fuck he has now. Why is he still working so hard? You could just retire off of that. You would never have to work another day in your life. I've watched a video where there's a calculator that said that if he spent $53 million every single day for the rest of his life, he would still have X.1 billion, blah, 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 at the end of his life. Why does he still need to keep working? because it was never about that in the first place. And if it is about that, you will never make it past 50 grand, 100 grand a year. You just won't. If money is your only motivator and it's your only driver, you will not go anywhere, because when it gets difficult and when it gets hard, it is not a good motivator at all whatsoever. And I think that people think about this all the time in the incorrect way. And I definitely don't do this. I used to do it. Like, oh, well, why do billionaires work? They've got so much. Because it's not about that for them. It's about the facilitating of their dream or their idea that they had in their mind and bringing that to life constantly and doing whatever it takes to allow that to exist in spite of circumstances, in spite of obstacles, in spite of rewards, which is the one that really trips people up. Doing something because it's so important to you, irregardless of the reward or the negatives. That's what it has to mean. And I genuinely hope that everybody finds something that allows them to think that way. I know it's difficult, and I know it's definitely not common, but it should make you look at your life in a different capacity. Just like the Dutch kid that I was talking to on the beach. He had all of the worldly possessions in the wake of him making the decision to get this job. And his whole thing was that he was in Thailand for a month because that was the time that it would take him to get ready for the role. He'd start a month later. And he's like, fuck it, I'm going to Thailand. I'm going to go get drunk on a beach and talk to a white Australian guy. And it just felt like it wasn't for him. It was for somebody else. It's like that typical story of the dad is a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer or a carpenter. They have some sort of trade. And they expect the son to follow in the same footsteps. Or they expect the son to one-up them where they were at and do something better than them. And Alex Hormozy has a really good story about this in the fact that he was the son of Iranian parents. And his dad was a doctor with a practice and all these things and very successful. And he was very invested in Alex doing better than him, but in the way that he saw fit. Like a tertiary educated, had to graduate with honors and magna cum laude and all those sorts of things. And he had to fit the bill and succeed in his dad's image, or otherwise his dad would be very disappointed. And he did do that. He succeeded, but in all the right ways, using all the wrong ways, using the right means. Like he developed work ethic and he developed an ability to maintain on a goal. Whether you're tired or you're hungry or you're bored or anything like that. He developed, obviously, an insatiable amount of drive and passion for chasing towards things. But then you hit this part of your life where you have an existential crisis where you say to yourself, I'm winning, but in somebody else's game. And none of it's worth it. And I've said this a lot to many different people in many different conversations. I would rather break my back making 50 grand a year for myself than I would ever, in whatever capacity, however easy it was, how simple it was, and how much time I could just waste earning 500 grand for somebody else. Any day of the week. Any day of the week, I would prefer that. And I said that for a very long time before I even started business. Because it was that deep-rooted psychological underpinning of even me doing well in a job. Like, I always worked hard in anything that I was doing. But I had this inkling that it just wasn't for me. And I was never going to be satisfied until I could shoulder all the responsibility. And I wasn't ready for that until I got a lot older. But I think you kind of just have to admit when enough is enough. Like, even if you got a job, like I got offered a job from a mate of mine. His name was Michael, the guy I used to hang out with when I was 18. And he offered me a job at a car sales position. Selling cars for like VW, I think it was at the time. And he said to me, he goes, it's going to be 100 grand a year out of the gate. with commission on top. Like whatever you sell is whatever you get to keep. And as an 18-year-old playing footy, making $300 a month from footy, and probably about $300, $400, $500 a week, maybe. As a, what was I doing at the time? I think I was a barista at this time. Yeah, I was a barista. That was very appealing to me. Very appealing. But I thought about it, and I had to tell him no, because the hours just weren't going to work with footy training, and it would mean that I would have to quit footy. And I wasn't willing to do that at that stage. And that turned out to be a phenomenal decision, because I put what I wanted to do above money. Because I didn't want to do car sales. I had no interest in that whatsoever. I never even thought about it or considered it as a job. So to take that position just because it has an attractive price tag doesn't make any sense. And I don't think people consider this. You get rather infatuated and or intoxicated by the fact that if I earn X amount, well, then I will be able to afford X amount. And you just get yourself into this trapped system of, well, I can live in a nicer house, I can drive a nicer car, I can finance more things and put my eyeballs up to, I can put myself up to my eyeballs in debt just to appease the opinions of other people that aren't even fucking thinking about you. Like, you think it matters, but it doesn't. Like, you're the main character of your own story. Well, to be fair, most people aren't even the main character of their own story. They're just a part in someone else's, which is crazy to me. But you should be the main character of your own story. And you're not that because you're constantly trying to gain adoration and validation from other individuals where you, by all rights, don't really, or shouldn't really give a fuck. Because they're not thinking about you at all. This is the thing with social media. Everybody goes, oh, like, what if I get embarrassed or blah, blah, blah. Trust me, man. It's ephemeral. It lasts this long. If you fuck up, if you make a bad decision, you say some dumb shit, whatever, it's going to be short-lived. Yeah, of course, some people are going to keep bringing it up and some people are going to shit on you for it. And some people are going to nag you in comment sections and blah, blah, blah. But in the grand scheme of things, 20 years down the track, you're not going to remember that shit. You're really not. You just won't. I'm sure I've had arguments with people on Instagram that I don't remember. Actually, I did have an argument on TikTok with someone that I didn't remember. And then he fucking tried to call me out on an MMA card that I was commentating like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago. I don't remember when it was. It was around March sometime. And he had like this whole story about how I'd like said some shit to him and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, I don't remember that actually. It took me ages to remember. And then I was like, oh yeah, like briefly remember some sort of interaction. And then I just forgot about it. And I was involved in that, and I still don't fucking remember. You'd be surprised at the things you forget, because you forget them, obviously. It's like Jimmy Carr said, being famous is kind of weird, because it's like you're in a small town, and everybody has Alzheimer's except for you. So they come up asking you the same questions again and again and again and again and again. And you're the only one that remembers the common thread from the thing that people have said. And I get it all the time. I get the same 3 or 5 questions every single time somebody meets me. The one thing that I really appreciated about the guys from Portland at the gym and the event that I was at is they didn't give a fuck about the whole social media thing. They just treated you as a person, which I thought was kind of special, because it's a weird situation where you start talking to people and they're like, oh yeah, like I could get something from this guy, or I'm going to try and leverage this, or I'll ask for something. I don't know. People just act weird. They really do. They just act weird. And Tim, probably my favorite guy from the whole trip. He and I are the same age, and we would have been best mates if I grew up in America, for sure. If we grew up in the same town, we would have hated each other when we were young, just like me and my best mate Zach. But we would have been very good friends. And we're going to be, obviously. It just lives in another country very far away. But he said that to me on one of the last days. And he goes, you know what's really funny? He goes, they said you were coming to this thing, and I had no idea who you were, and I still don't give a fuck. He goes, but now I like you as a person because I've met you. And like, he goes, even on the first day, like, who's this fucking guy? Fucking thinks he's special, blah, blah, blah. And then me and him hit it off immediately. He goes, "You started saying some wild shit," and I agree with it. And then we became really good mates. And that was kind of the story with a lot of those guys as well. They said, "We really didn't know what to make of you because you're like this. You appear to be like this serious, professional sort of person, but then when you meet you, like just normal dude." And I think the humanization of that is really important. A lot of people take social media so seriously where they think that person is that person. But you've got to understand it's a caricature of that individual. And some people are very good at it. Some people are very bad at it. Some people are very good to make you believe that they are somebody who they're not in an insidious way, in a malicious way. But then there's also the benign version as well, where it's not insidious or malicious. It's just the fact that they only appear to be one way on social media. But this is the narrative as well. It's so difficult to segment this because it's always going to be based on your perception. Like I'm going to view somebody completely different to the way that you're going to view them, and vice versa. And so the whole idea of this is just don't take things on face value all of the time because you're going to be wrong, essentially. The whole adage of don't judge a book by its cover. Kind of true. Kind of true. You're going to see someone for who they are, spend a little bit more time with them. Don't come in with like this false pretense and this assessment just based on their social media, which I think is fucking stupid anyway. I try and give people benefit of the doubt and say that they're not anything close to who they are on social media because most people aren't. Like I don't put up everything that I do in a day. I don't think that that's particularly interesting, and I also don't want to share all of my life with everyone on the internet. And you leave out a lot of stuff, not on purpose, not in a secretive fashion, but it's just the way that it goes. Some people need to leave out more of their life. How about that? This is a bunch of people on the internet that fucking sit there and cry and whinge, and my missus has some hilarious stories about that where I won't use names because they can have their privacy, even though they don't give anyone else the privilege of not knowing who they are. But people that complain and put their problems on Instagram and just have a fucking whinge all over social media about shit that no one else should know about and or definitely doesn't care about. But they find it necessary to tell their 300 followers that they're angry about something that happened 2 weeks ago that no one gives a fuck about. It's a crazy world. It's a crazy place. It's a fun game we're all playing. I'll put it that way. It's a very interesting situation we've gotten ourselves into. And it was actually one of the other highlights of the trip was people that I was around seemed to be very connected to not this like anti-materialistic type of thing, but that it's more in line with what I was just saying. It parallels that exactly. But they just didn't give a fuck about. They really didn't care about image. They didn't care about what they were wearing and all those sorts of things. It was more like what's behind it. What's the story behind it? Why is it important? What's the culture behind it? And that was something that I really took away that was quite cool. We were walking around, me and one of the other guys, Donnie, who was also a really good kid. We were walking around and we ended up going to this weed shop and asking these guys some questions for directions. And there was 2 British dudes, 2 Thai dudes, and they were playing 100 baht bet matches on UFC 3. While they were all 4 of them were getting obliterated smoking weed. And the 2 British guys were eating sundaes and ice cream sandwiches, and the 2 Thai guys are just killing themselves laughing, whatever they were laughing about. And it was just such a funny, such a funny situation. Not a care in the world. Not a care in the world. Like 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, or whatever it was. Middle of the street. Could have been doing anything else, but that's what they were doing. And it felt, there was like this feeling, it's hard to articulate, but the feeling of carefree, hassle-free, low worry, like very, very low anxiety sort of situation, that they were just happy to be there doing what they were doing. And they weren't really hung up on anything, or that, I was meant to be doing this, or blah, blah, blah. And obviously this unconstrained behavior could also have negative connotations. But I didn't get that feeling from it. I didn't get that sense from it. And we're actually talking about this. It's quite funny. I was talking about the locals there that work at the bars and all the dumb shit they must see from Westerners. And I was talking to one of the guys. I was saying, imagine the conversations that these guys have. Like, they're just sitting there. They're watching a group of like UK people coming down, and they always get drunk as fuck. And they don't cause problems or anything most of the time. They're just drunk and annoying. And they see this big group of white people coming down the street. They're just every fucking day. More of the same shit every fucking day. Always the UK cunts, always the British guys, always the Germans and whatever else. I could imagine that they have those conversations quite regularly. They're very nice people. They're very happy to be around. I'm sure they'd much rather be doing that, working at a bar in like a nice set of conditions than what some other people are doing in the world, obviously. But yeah, it's funny to try and see it from their perspective and their viewpoint. And just think about it, how I would be like if I was in a bar situation, which I have been. And there's this one customer that comes in all the time, and you're going to have to cut him off because he just gets obliterated every time. And you're like, dude, why do we do this every week? Why? Why is every time you come in, Friday, 4 p.m., you and I both know you're going to drink way too much. You're going to get ridiculous. And I'm going to have to cut you off. And you're going to get mad about it for the 5th week in a row. What's wrong with you? Why do you do this to yourself? I can imagine that the Thai people have that conversation very regularly. But it's just different hordes of people because it's a very holiday-y, touristy destination. But it was fun. It was cool. Thoroughly enjoyed the experience. I have been requested to go back next year. We'll see how that goes with a 6-month-old, most likely. Maybe even 7 months at that stage. Yeah, I think so. 6. Yeah, 6. But yeah, it was really cool meeting those guys. They were super friendly, very welcoming, very hospitable, which was really cool. Phil is an absolute legend. Sean is an absolute legend as well. Those guys were the other 2 coaches that were a part of the camp. And I think if you are a jiu-jitsu practitioner that listens to this, you might pick up some cool details from some things. I think the most you'll get out of the sessions will be the fact that you get to roll with professional guys that you probably don't have at your gym. But don't go under the false pretense of like, this is going to be the most game-changing thing for my game. And I don't think most people do that. Go under the pretense that you're going to have some fun training with people that you've never trained with. And you're going to go experience another country. Because that's basically what it's going to be. It's not going to be this game-changing thing. Like, Gordon didn't go to a fucking jiu-jitsu camp in Thailand for 2 weeks and come out who he is. And also, this is another really good point, jiu-jitsu specific, because I know a lot of you guys follow me because of that. Learn how to ask some fucking questions, please, dear God. me and Sean and Phil were just racking our brains as to how some of these words, in the order that they came out of people's heads, came out. Like, one guy was very well-meaning. He was a lovely guy. But he was asking me about like my schedule. And I get this asked to me all the time on Q&A on Instagram. My schedule has nothing to fucking do with you at all, ever. And it's never going to be applicable information whatsoever. Let's say, for instance, I do tell you what my schedule is, and I tell you that I train 14 times a week and I train the gym 1 day a week. And I have to go through the same fucking conversation every single time where you're perplexed by the fact that I look like this and I only train one weight session a week. And you're like, oh my God, how is that possible? And then I tell you the same story that I've been lifting weights for 14 years and the fact that I did a lot of my weightlifting before I started jiu-jitsu, and that's why I've been able to accrue so much muscle mass and so much strength and so much explosivity, and also maintain that because there's a disproportionate amount of effort that goes into building it comparative to the amount, the tiny, tiny, tiny little amount that goes into maintaining it. And it's the same conversation every fucking time. But for you to then surmise that that's what you should be doing because that's the thing that got me my results is stupid, because I'm different. This is a different experience. There's a different host of activities that I've committed to for a much longer period of time that if you applied them, you wouldn't get the same results because we're different people. It's just how it works. It just is what it is. You kind of got to march to the beat of your own drum and do the best of what you can with the things that you have available to you. And that doesn't mean copying someone else's. Like, you could write down Jeff Bezos's morning routine and you're not fucking going to be Jeff Bezos. It's just not going to happen. It's not. It just is not going to happen. There are specific things that the circumstances that they were in allowed them to be where they're at. They worked very hard, obviously. But there's a lot that goes into it, and it's not just scheduling. And one of the guys was like, well, how did you get so good? And I'm like, honestly, I don't fucking feel like I am, to be fair. I am just inquisitive and curious about this whole thing going on. And one of the guys kind of got an inside look to that because Tim had wrestled, I think maybe at a college level, I'm not sure. He was in the Navy and wrestled there and stuff like that. But he's been in a room with some pretty cool guys like Chael Sonnen and Dan Gable and Matt Fury, the guy who wrote the Psycho Cybernetics remake on Spotify, and obviously in physical copy as well, which is really cool. The whole 6 degrees of separation, you're only like 3 people away from knowing everybody on Earth, is really crazy. But it's true every single time. And he's been around a lot of cool people. And I was like, oh, great. This guy knows more about wrestling than I do. Fantastic. Let me ask like 10 questions of things that I've been coming up against that I want to fine tune and see if he comes up with different answers that I'm coming up with currently, and then workshop it. And Sean and I, one of the other coaches, were just firing questions at him and see what he come up with answers. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I never thought about it like that. And then I since have taken that away and then applied it in my own training. And that's more or less the idea of asking a question of someone else's experience that would be genuinely useful. It's not like, what was your schedule when you were wrestling? Like, were you wrestling twice a day? Should I be wrestling twice a day? It's fucking stupid. And a lot of people ask me these questions over the internet. It's mainly schedule based questions, and I get why you're in the position you're in, because you're so worried about things that don't fucking matter. Really, honestly, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you train 7 days a week. Doesn't matter if you train 10 times a week. Doesn't matter if you train fucking 50 times a week. It matters the quality of your training, not the quantity, first and foremost. But there's just even these situations where people are like, oh, well, I was doing this in the training room. My coach said this and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, it doesn't fucking matter. You think that it matters, but it doesn't. And I think that's a superpower that's worth developing. Recognizing what does and doesn't matter, and then just tripling down on what does matter. But going through the experience on your own, of course, leveraging other individuals and mentors and standing on the shoulders of giants, but not trying to pull the golden thread where you're skirting around going through the thing that you need to go through to get better. There's no way around it. There's no secret. There's no pill that you can take that's going to get you to where you want to go. It doesn't exist. I spent years searching for it. Years. From 16 to 23, that was all I was focused on. And guess where the lowest percentage of my results in my entire life was? From 16 to 23. I just didn't fucking get anything done because I was so preoccupied by the fact that I knew that there was some sort of secret that I was missing that enabled all these different people from all these different walks of life with completely different experiences and incomparable histories with each other. that they knew something I didn't. They were all in this secret club that I wasn't in, and they were keeping me out of it because they wanted to close the gate. They wanted to gatekeep their secrets for themselves and have the success all to their own. And then you break through that. You realize that's all bullshit. It's all nonsense. And then you start actually working and putting one foot in front of the other. And you wake up 5 years later and you've done everything you said you were going to do. And then you go, wow, the only thing that was keeping me from getting what I wanted was fucking me. The irony is that it's always you stopping you from getting what you want. It's never got anything to do with anybody else, ever. I like Ilya Tapuria's statement the other day. He was saying, well, I've always been of the opinion that if someone can do it, I can do it. And if it hasn't been done yet, I'm going to be the first. Why the fuck not? He's not asking some dork on the internet, oh, well, what was your schedule when you did that? Doesn't care. Doesn't give a fuck. And you've got to be like that in a sense. And this goes into the dichotomy of the reactionary frame versus the generative frame. The reactionary frame is definitely more so being stuck as somebody underneath life. A victim, basically. And the generative frame is carving out your own path. No matter what it looks like, no matter how hard it's going to be, the obstacles that you're going to face and go through and what have you. And just doing it anyway. Just stop asking people what their fucking schedule is because it doesn't make a difference. It seriously doesn't, because with that information, what are you meant to do? What are you meant to do with that information? Are you meant to change your whole life around? It's unlikely that you do that. So then the answer isn't even the thing that you're looking for because the question is poorly worded. Of course, ask questions, be inquisitive, be curious. But at the same state, like, there's no secret. There's no golden thread that you can pull that gets you everything that you want. Someone asked me this yesterday. He's like, oh, what's the best learning method? And it was a little bit of a smart ass comment, but the best learning method is doing shit and then figuring out what that shit that you did got you, further or closer. And then if it got you further, remodeling the shit you did and going again. If it got you closer, expanding the shit you did and moving forwards. That's it. That's the only way to learn. That's the best learning method. Most people are so preoccupied by what method they are using to learn that they don't fucking learn anything. They miss the forest for the trees. Well, there has to be a more efficient method. There has to be this thing that I don't know that's stopping me. You know, I'll tell you the secret to my program. I will tell you the secret right now. I'll give it to you for free. I hold you accountable to the things that you know you should be doing that you don't. That's the secret. That's what I implement. I show you how to organize your way of doing things in such a manner that you can guarantee results if you do it. That's it. It's not magic. It's not rocket science. I've probably given away more in these podcasts than I have actually fucking implemented for people, because it's a reiteration of the same points again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And that was the secret that I was searching for just under 10 years. A way to organize your life to where you only do the shit that is necessary to push you forwards. And that's it. And yeah, of course, that takes a little bit of perspective and it takes a little bit of understanding and some history behind it. But as soon as you recognize that, like, everybody knows what they need to be doing, they're just not doing it. If I asked you, your goal was losing weight, does that mean that you go out and eat in a calorie surplus 7 days a week? No. Okay, so why are you doing it? You know what you need to be doing, you're just not doing it. If you wanted to lose weight, does that mean moving less or moving more? Moving more. Doesn't take a fucking scientist to figure that out. If you want to make more money, you have to become more or less valuable to society. More. Duh. It's not that fucking hard. If you want to build a product, does it have to be impactful to that person's life or non-impactful to that person's life? impactful, obviously, because if it's impactful, they will get something useful out of it. If they get something useful out of it enough, they'll tell other people. They tell other people, your product grows alongside with the business, and then you're able to implement further strategies to boost up those channels to make sure that it continually gets better so that more people will do the same thing for you. That's it. That's all it is. There's the secret. There it fucking is. You want to get good at jiu-jitsu? Do you train with a goal in mind, or you just rock up and see what happens? You know what to do. You train with a goal in mind, because you don't get anywhere without writing something down first and then going after it, because otherwise there's no way to measure where the fuck you're going. You can run as fast as you want, but if it's in the wrong direction, you are wasting your time. If you have direction, if you have a clear goal in mind, if you have some sort of purpose, you will know what isn't it, which is far more valuable than knowing what it is. Because if you know what it's not, you avoid all of the wastes of time. You avoid all of the pitfalls. You avoid all of the major waste obstacles, because you won't be gaining anything useful from the experience. You're going to have obstacles no matter what you do in your life. But the ones that are just wasting time are the ones that really defeat you, because when you slay that dragon, there's no prize at the end, because you realize you're going in the wrong direction. And when you begin, this is why it's hardest to start something at the very beginning. Like going from 0 to 1 is very, very difficult, because you have no idea which direction you want to go into. I want to start a business. And then you're just like, well, I don't know what I want to start. So what's popular? You go down a YouTube rabbit hole. You find out about this drop shipping bullshit, and you go try and sell fake jewelry to people on the internet. It sounds oddly specific, because that's exactly what I did. tried to sell fucking jewelry on the internet. But looking back on it now, with the information that I know currently from the experience that I've gone through, is that if you really think about, was it going to be impactful to people? No. Was it something that I was willing to do? No. Was I putting a price tag above everything else? Yeah. I was just trying to make money. That's all I was trying to do. And that's why it failed. Because the person who's not trying to make money out of a similar business will outwork you times 10. And so, is this a vehicle that I can be prepared to work hard in? Nah. As soon as I find a reason to quit, I'm fucking out of there. See you later. That's what you got to recognize. But again, you know that. You know it already. I'm just reminding you of the fact that you know it. I'm not teaching anything new. Barely anybody is going to teach you anything new. In terms of operating, I sincerely think that not a lot of people can teach you something brand new. They can mold your perspective, and they can show you things that you haven't seen before in terms of, let's say, for example, technical information in jiu-jitsu, or technical information in business, or ways of generating leads and customers and blah, 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 blah. It might be a mindset shift for your relationships or the way that you think or something like that. But it's very rarely is it groundbreaking, crazy, out of this world, reality shifting stuff. It might be that in accumulation of over a 5-year period. Cool. But the groundbreaking thing there was your consistency. That was the groundbreaking thing. It wasn't anything brand new. You knew if you just stuck at it, you'd get better at it. It's just the sticking at it that's the hard part. And just no one does it at all. Which is crazy to me, because people will do it for things that they hate, but they'll give up on things they love. It's fucking crazy to me. You'll persist on hating your job and go there every day without fail. I don't get it. You'll persist on hating the after effects of drinking alcohol, but you'll do it every weekend. I don't get it. When it comes to losing weight, you won't fucking stick to it for 2 weeks. Insanity. I don't understand. I really don't get it. And I don't know how to explain it other than you've just got to look at it and go, am I willing to do this for the next 10 years? I think that was a big thing for me. I think one of the biggest critical junctures in my development was, am I willing to do this for the next 10 years? As a question. It was a really, really good, well-timed question. And I was like, not a fucking chance, because I won't be here if I do. That was more or less what I said to myself. I'm like, I'm not going to be here if I do this for the next 10 years. Something has to give. And you hear about this situation a lot in terms of people who quit drinking or quit cigarettes or anything like that. And one day you just wake up and you go, enough. It's fascinating to me. It's fascinating. You smoke for 20 years, and just one day you wake up, never again. And then you don't touch it ever again. The power of decision making is phenomenal. I did the same thing with alcohol 9 years ago in May. And people are perplexed by that all the time. They're like, yeah, but you're Australian and you come from a drinking culture and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, you must have lost so many friends. I didn't lose a single friend that wasn't worth keeping. I didn't. All my mates that were worth hanging around, stuck around still to this day. Every single one of them was a genuine friend. I didn't lose a single one of them. I lost hundreds of fucking drifters that I will not speak to now because they're not mates of mine, but they never were. That's one of the secrets when you remove yourself from those situations. I see these videos all the time of like Hormozy and Chris Williamson. They're talking about like the loneliness of the journey and all this sort of shit. First of all, get the fuck over it. But you can't be worried about the people that are around you sticking around where you're at currently because they won't be. Most people aren't willing to make the changes that you're saying that you're going to make. And if that's the case, then you shouldn't be willing to like hang on to those people. And there should be no aversion to being quote unquote lonely. I don't think it's even a lonely endeavor, to be completely honest. I think it's just what is required. Like you're aiming to be an exception. You must be an exception by definition. You must be exceptional by definition, which means not normal, which means not doing normal shit and hanging around with normal people and whatever the fuck normal's meant to mean anyway. This is another thing I was talking about beforehand. I used to think being weird was like a death sentence, basically, when I was a kid, when I was growing up. And I realized it's actually a superpower because you don't fit into the crowd anyway. So you don't fit into the normalcy of everything that goes on around you where people don't really enjoy themselves most of the time. And they wait for the weekend to enjoy themselves. They wait till they can go to a job and earn X amount of dollars so that they can spend it in opposition from what they were doing all day and compensate for the fact that they didn't get to do what they wanted to do all day with their time. And then they backload that in a week to the weekend, where the weekend basically owns them and their time and their attention and their wallet. And they gear up on Sunday night to do it all again Monday morning. I fucking hated that existence. I really did. So much so that I don't live it anymore. That's what you just got to get used to, I guess. It's not that it's like a lonely journey and you should be worried about it. It just is what it is. I think this stops people a lot. They're like, oh yeah, but what if I have to leave my friends behind? What if you do? What if the only thing stopping you is the fact that you're hanging on to people that don't want the best for you? Because most people don't want the best for you. Even some people's parents don't want the best for them. I've lived that. I've experienced it. I've literally had a parent sabotage my professional career because of their selfishness. Genuinely. I'll tell the story one day. Probably. True story. It happened. And then lied to me for 3 or 4 years about it not happening. It's crazy. Crazy time. Crazy time. Even the people that are closest to you don't want the best for you. Some of the time. Not always. Not always. It's about finding those ones that do. Those people are godsends. They really are. Like my current partner is like that 100%. Wants me to succeed as much as I want me to succeed, which is perfection. I genuinely hope you guys find somebody like that. I really do. Whether it's a best mate, whether it's a partner, whether it's a parent, like you've got a phenomenal influence as a parent. Not everybody's fortunate enough to have that. But to have someone genuinely giving a fuck about your career or your endeavors as much as you do is really special. Really, really special. You do everything in your power to keep that person around. Because you fuck that up, you're a moron. You are. And they're very difficult to find, those individuals. But if you do find one, they're the ones you want to keep. They're the ones, when you change your behaviors, they'll get it. They'll go, I see what you're doing. Keep going. They're not the ones that'll shun you for working on the weekends. They're not the ones that'll shun you for not going out. They're not the ones that'll shun you for not drinking. They're not. They're just not, because they see what you're doing and they understand it. They get it. My sister's like that. She's pretty fucking cool too. She's like, yeah, I get it. Keep going. Cool. Sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes that's a difference maker. Seriously, sometimes it is. Sometimes that's all you need. So for you guys watching, I get it. Fucking keep going with whatever you're doing. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're fucking painting porcelain My Little Pony dolls and that fulfills your dreams more than what everybody else is doing. Fucking keep doing it. Good for you. If you want to do it, go and do it. Don't have any aversion to loss or anything like that, or think like, what will people think of me? People are going to think of you what they're going to think of you no matter what you fucking do. There are 5 to 10 to 15% of people on the internet that cannot fucking stand a word I say. They hate my guts, they hate my face, and they've never met me. And they never will. And if they do meet me, they'll fucking suck me in person and ask me for a photo. Guarantee it. Never had a bad interaction off the internet in my entire life. Not once. Never had an argument. Never had a bad interaction with somebody coming up to me in person at all, ever. And it never will happen. Because most people are pussies. It's just the fact of the matter. But that's the thing. They're not going to like you just because you exist. There's nothing you can do about it. It's not your business, actually. None of your business whether people like you or not. Could fucking care less. You don't like me? Okay, sweet. Fuck off over there. Go. Makes no difference to what I was going to do tomorrow. Wake up and train. I had this conversation with one guy. We'll wrap up on this, but he was talking about that. He goes, oh, like, what if people don't like me on social media? I'm like, that's part of it, bro. If you're going to let the fact that some people don't like you stand in the way of you producing things that you think will be helpful for other people, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. You're probably not going to make it. You just got to get over it. It's going to happen. Nothing you can do about it. Smile at them from the car that you wanted to drive the entire time. And then... Anyway. That's me done. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'm still thinking of a way that I can tell you that this is a brand new channel, that you're obviously watching if it is the brand new channel because you found it, because YouTube's a smart cookie and they recommended that you move over to this channel. Yeah, it's not really going to serve you if I talk about how I'm going to send people that are already here. Anyway, enjoy. I'll see you in the next one.